If you thought the Browns quarterback competition was a genuine race, buckle up, because Joe Flacco just changed the entire story. And it's not pretty. On a recent episode of his podcast, Flacco laid it bare. Shadar Sanders isn't getting the reps he deserves. Despite official claims of open competition, Jimmy Haslam admitted he never wanted Sanders on the roster in the first place. Now, Flacco's own comments confirm that the script, written long before camp, has more to do with political favoritism than performance. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Flacco's podcast bombshell. Flacco said himself, the reps aren't even close to fair. Dylan Gabriel, the supposed backup, has been sucks up the majority of first-team drills. Flacco is often dressed in for scripted series. But Sanders? He gets scraps. Third-string reps. Scout team snaps. It's a rigged game, and everyone knew it, except Sanders. So when Haslam publicly admitted he never wanted Sanders from the start, everything flipped. It wasn't just prejudice. It was premeditated exclusion. Flacco's tone wasn't malicious. It was matter of fact. It's not about who's best, he said. It's about who the bosses want. That line alone speaks volumes about where decision-making happens in Cleveland. Hidden agenda. A QB contest in name only. Let's be crystal clear. When a head coach says competition is open, but one player still clearly isn't getting reps, something's wrong. Sanders might be the most accurate thrower in camp. He might lead every QB in efficiency and decision-making. But none of that matters if the ownership engineered this outcome in advance. Gabriel is deep in the playbook, getting first-team looks Sanders never sees. Flacco, the safe fallback. Sanders, the outsider. Anyone watching camp footage could spot it. Gabriel running scripted drives, while Sanders runs twos and scout team drills. But the front office called it development. Now Flacco calls it what it is. Favoritism masked as fairness. Haslam's confession changed everything. Jimmy Haslam has a known track record of quarterback interruptions. He shifts coaches, signs big names, and tries to play football GM without doing the work. Now he says he never wanted Sanders? That admission shredded the facade of open competition. If the owner himself says he'd rather take another quarterback over Sanders, it changes everything. The players hear it. The staff hears it. And more importantly, Sanders hears it too. It's one thing to be under veteran QB's shadow. It's another to be under the owner's. Now, what felt like a fair fighting chance is revealed as a prestige performance. Few reps, big consequences. The NFL only grants so many reps in practice. There's zero room for fair experimentation. If Gabriel gets most first-team reps, Flacco gets scripted reps. Sanders gets the developmental scraps. That's not a competition. It's a show. What's worse, players are talking. Widely respected names in that facility whispered. It's disrespectful how little Sanders gets to show what he can do. One assistant coach allegedly said he could carry this offense, but no one's giving him a playbook. Think about that. A rookie quarterback out here executing precise throws and leadership demands every coach wants, and still not getting the tools to compete. Why Gabriel? Why Flacco? Gabriel earned trust early. He's prepped. He's polished. He doesn't disrupt the hierarchy. Flacco has experience, a large contract, and a clean narrative. But those credentials don't outplay raw talent, unless the system is set to protect them. This is where Flacco's admission matters most. He isn't just backing Sanders. He's exposing that the system saved Gabriel. The optics of Gabriel versus Sanders might make Gabriel look like the safe hand. But the reality is, 7 weeks in, Gabriel still hasn't outperformed Sanders in measurable drills or team-led confidence. Sanders getting iced out of team content and culture. If you weren't convinced before, consider this. Sanders isn't in team hype videos. He's not in promotional segments. He's barely visible during team build finger sessions. Yet Gabriel and Flacco get the spotlight. Front-facing visions of the team matter. When the player you're hiding behind the curtain continuously outpaces your depth chart feature, something's wrong. The narrative is clear. Keep Sanders quiet. Keep Gabriel in view. It's all part of facade now, Open competition, that's anything but. The real issue, control over merit. This is not just a bad breakdown in competition. This is ownership forcing a narrative. It's a reveal that the competition was never over performance. It was over who controls perception. If Flacco's podcast statement stings, it's because he's not just calling out favoritism. He's calling out management by filter. Performance filtered through politics. Reps allocated based on suspicion. Promotions withheld by bias. That's not development. That's obstruction. Sanders versus dysfunction itself. Now, picture this. A quarterback who not only outplays his competition, but also does it with poise, accuracy, leadership, and calm. A rookie with no drama, zero excuses, and a relentless want to win. That's Sanders. And yet the organization keeps him irrelevant. Why? Because the Browns' dysfunction is deeper than bad draft picks. It's built into power moves. It's institutional micromanagement. It's poor players moving up because they're not threatening. Meanwhile, the best playmaker in the room sits in the shadows. That doesn't make sense unless you see the sabotage for what it is. Lessons beyond Cleveland. Flacco's words aren't just about one team. They shine a spotlight on an NFL disease, powerful names overriding merit. When ownership enters quarterback rooms with bias, the entire team shifts direction. It's not only the player who suffers, it's trust. Everything fractures. Sanders might still become the QB1 somewhere. And if he does, Cleveland won't just look foolish. They'll look willfully negligent. They had a shot at leadership, accuracy, poise, and choked. Flacco saying on a podcast, that's rare accountability in a league full of cover UPS. And it changes the rules moving forward. Other players will hear that and know that if you ball out and still get hit with political hurdles, someone might still speak truth anyway. What's next for Sanders? This is a fork in the road. The Browns realize there's a problem and pivot, giving Sanders first team reps and letting football decide the outcome. That would be redemption for them. Or they double down on favoritism, keep pushing Gabriel or Flacco, and allow Sanders to become another regret on Cleveland highlight reel. Either way, the spotlight's on now, and there's no escaping it. Joe Flacco's bombshell. Summary. Flacco confirmed an uneven distribution of reps in practice. He backed Haslam's claim they didn't want Sanders, with implications that the competition was pre-scripted. Sanders' lack of reps and visibility reveals systematic bias, not chance. Gabriel is the heir apparent in name, not performance. Sanders could be the best passer in camp, but he's not being tested fairly. The Browns' culture now demands scrutiny, not just hope. This isn't a quarterback story. It's a culture story. Sanders' talent is obvious. His demeanor as ready as any veteran. His leadership is raw and respected. And yet the Browns handcuff him because they're afraid of their own staff seeing what's right in front of them. If Cleveland wants to flip the narrative, they must start with truth. Open the reps. Let performance drive decisions. Admit when they were wrong. This is where we split. The Browns can either step into accountability or double down on damage control. Because Flacco has cleared the Marlboro smokescreen. The competition isn't real. It's been scripted behind closed doors. Now the spotlight is on those decisions, and more than ever before, Cleveland can't hide from scrutiny. 1, it's no longer about policy. It's about transparency. The practice plan isn't some sacred scroll. It's a playbook, and it's supposed to serve football, not politics. But what most teams don't admit is how often quarterback reps are dictated by preferred seedings, not performance on the field. Flacco's insight shattered the fantasy. Haslam and staff planned to sideline a dynamic rookie in favor of lesser talent. Now the Browns are cornered. They can't claim process anymore. They've exposed the filter behind who gets opportunities. 2, behind every QB script is a culture problem. The quarterback room is a microcosm of the franchise. Who gets reps, who gets respect, who gets featured on team content. It all sends signals. Sanders being iced from team hype videos is more than oversight. It's omission when a player who's outperforming the roster isn't even visible in team media. It's not just injustice. It's strategy. It's narrative engineering. Because in today's NFL, every 15-second clip is communication. By excluding Sanders from the spotlight, the Browns inadvertently admit they're hiding something. 3. It's one thing to sabotage opportunities. It's another to force someone else's narrative. Dylan Gabriel and Joe Flacco are both respectable quarterbacks. Neither, however, are shaking the ceiling like Sanders is. Yet the reps, the content, the storyline, they skew decidedly in their favor. And when you watch the story unfold beyond a locker room, you realize the real people running quarterback decisions aren't coaches or evaluators. They're narrative engineers. Ownership frames a message, and players sometimes become stories instead of decision makers. Flacco blowing the doors off that script is what made this story explode. For Shedur's silence doesn't mean submission. Sanders didn't complain. He didn't leak. He played. He absorbed. He led. To stay centered in that chaos speaks to his mindset. He's the kind of player who knows you don't create opportunity. You respond to it. But every day is an accumulation. If Flacco's saying it is one shot, Sanders staying silent is another. That's leadership by example. The Browns still haven't adequately responded to this, publicly or internally. That silence is louder than any excuse. 5. This could be the turning point in NFL player empowerment. We're watching the beginning of a potential shift. Players have always talked quietly behind the scenes. But rarely have we gotten that perspective on the record from someone of Flacco's stature in a position room. That opens doors. Does every player now risk tanking their opportunity by speaking up? Not necessarily. But this moment makes it clear that not everything stays in-house anymore. For the young players watching, for rookies wondering if their reps matter, this is precedent. It's now reachable, public accountability for how practice reps are allocated and how narratives are shaped. 6. If this breaks down, it won't be Sanders' fault. Let's be honest. Shedur Sanders' talent level isn't the issue. He's shown enough in shorts, shells, red zone drills, and huddle calls to prove he'd be a legitimate starter at many franchises. The only thing still standing in the way, politics. That's not a rookie mistake. That's a franchise failure. And if Sanders doesn't pan out in Cleveland, it won't be because he wasn't ready. It'll be because he wasn't given a fair shot. 7. The Browns need to make a public choice right now. There's zero room for ambiguity anymore. The longer they pretend this is about competition, the more they risk looking cowardly. They must make a choice, a public one. Do they release detailed rep splits, showing fairness, then let the playbook and results speak? Do they double down on Gabriel or Flacco, even now, with backlash mounting? Or do they make a clear pivot, hand Sanders real first-team reps, admit the misstep, and rebuild trust? The first path builds credibility. The second escalates the crisis. 8. The tide can turn, but Cleveland wins or loses from action, not excuses. If they act, install Shadhour in meaningful reps. Give him video content, a media platform, equal opportunity. Let performance become the final cut. You could watch this narrative flip in weeks. Football has a way of resolving stories when trust and opportunity align. If they don't, they extend the distrust. They validate Flacco's whistleblow. They increase the odds that Sanders ends up starting his career with another jersey. And for a fan base with seasons of deja vu behind them, that might be the final sting. 9. What would final accountability look like? Imagine this. A post-practice shoot. Haslam, Berry, and Stefanski appear together. They say, "We mismanaged this. We overprotected legacy. We undervalue performance." It stops today. They hand Sanders full reps. They keep Gabriel and Flacco active. But Sanders becomes the centerpiece. They post him in content. That doesn't guarantee success, but it restores respect. And for Cleveland, respect is rare. 10. The clear contradiction. Past promises versus present reality. They drafted him. They said they believed in him. They praised his professionalism publicly. Now they're quietly silencing him behind scenes. That contradiction makes this moment explosive. It's not just about reps. It's about integrity. And if the Browns continue to avoid that reality, their next losses won't just be chalkboard issues. They'll be moral ones. Give Sanders the reps he earned. Let the field decide. Recover credibility. Maybe, just maybe, define a new narrative for Cleveland football because they've run out of cover. Flacco pulled the curtains back. Sanders has outplayed most of the room. The fans aren't blind. It's not about spinning facts anymore. It's about facing them. And either they respond with accountability or they confirm everything Flacco just said on his podcast. There's no hiding now, because when talent outpaces politics, the only way forward is to let it shine. Cleveland can choose to act or choose to fall. Shedeur Sanders is watching. So is the league. And now the entire building feels it. The tension, the shift in energy, the nervous scrambling behind the scenes as execs and coaches try to figure out whether Joe Flacco just torched the team's PR strategy in real time. Because that podcast wasn't just a veteran musing about camp dynamics. It was a full-on warning shot, an unfiltered, veteran-certified confirmation that something seriously off in Cleveland. Flacco's words hit like a brick. You don't expect a guy like him, Super Bowl MVP, seen it all, nothing to prove, to pull back the curtain like that. He doesn't need to stir the pot. He doesn't need to back a rookie. But he did. And that's what makes this so damning. It wasn't Sanders' agent whining. It wasn't a cryptic tweet. It was the most experienced guy in the room calmly laying out the truth. The reps are not being distributed fairly, and Shedeur Sanders is getting iced out. Behind the scenes, the response wasn't pretty. There were emergency meetings, uncomfortable silences, and, according to one source, a whole lot of blame being passed around like hot potato. Coaches claiming ownership made the call. Ownership saying they're just trusting the staff. Analysts pointing to practice footage that clearly contradicts the official narrative. It's a carousel of finger-pointing, and the only constant is that Shedeur remains on the outside, looking in. And it's not just about reps anymore. It's about how those reps shape perception. Every throw Dylan Gabriel makes is being filmed, praised, and replayed. Every shot of Flacco in the QB room is used for team hype content. And Sanders? Practically invisible. Not even in the background. And you can't tell us that's accidental. When a guy is leading the offense in metrics and still getting cropped out of the narrative, it's not neglect, it's design. Even among players, the vibe has changed. Receivers whisper about how different it feels when Shedeur is under center, how the rhythm is tighter, the reads are quicker, the ball placement sharper. But no one wants to say it too loud, because they know, in Cleveland, politics move faster than talent. And if you back the wrong horse publicly, you might be catching passes from the bench too. The trust gap is growing. That locker room is full of guys who've seen too many false starts. Too many promising moments turned into disasters by upstairs decisions. They're not dumb. They know when a guy is getting boxed out. And they're starting to wonder if anything on this team is actually decided by merit. That's the kind of doubt that breaks a team slowly but surely from the inside. And Sanders, for his part, continues to keep his mouth shut. He shows up, he practices, he supports teammates. But you can see it, this situation is wearing on him. Not because he's struggling, because he's not being allowed to struggle. He's not being allowed to compete. And when you're wild like Shedeur, when you were raised by Deion Sanders, when you've grown up with the entire world doubting your every move, being benched for reasons that have nothing to do with performance, that hits different. It's not just disappointing. It's disrespectful. What's worse is that the Browns seem to think they can ride this out, that if they just stay quiet, the Flacco podcast will fade and the fans will forget. But they won't. Not this time. Because this isn't just some abstract, behind-the-scenes drama. It's now public. It's tangible. Fans are already asking why Gabriel is still getting first-team reps after a string of inconsistent practices. They're asking why Flacco, who should be a mentor, is still in the active battle. And most of all, they're asking, if Shedeur Sanders isn't even given a chance to prove himself, what was the point of drafting him in the first place? That's the question that's haunting the front office right now. Because the answer isn't pretty. The truth is, they didn't expect him to be this good this fast. They expected him to be a long-term project, a PR-friendly pick, a guy they could stash while developing their preferred QBs. But now that he's ahead of schedule, instead of adjusting the plan, they're trying to force reality back into their original box. It's the NFL version of deleting your GPS when it tells you to take a better route, just because you don't like being wrong. And this is a new behavior for Cleveland. Let's not forget, This is the same franchise that once had a 3 QB depth chart printed on a literal jersey because they cycled through so many failed experiments. This is a team that spent years mastering the art of mismanagement. And now, just when they stumble into a potentially game-changing rookie quarterback, they're too proud or too paranoid to see what's right in front of them. Shedur's camp knows it too. They haven't said much publicly, but privately, there's frustration. And not just with the reps, but with the way the team has failed to manage expectations, media messaging, and internal accountability. They've watched other rookie QBs around the league get legitimate shots. They've seen the fair treatment given to far less talented prospects. And they're wondering why Cleveland, of all places, a team with no solidified starter and a recent history of QB turmoil, is acting like they have something to protect. Let's talk about the Flacco effect again for a second, because it's not just what he said, it's who he is. A veteran voice, well-respected, not known for drama, goes on a podcast and casually drops a bomb about how reps aren't being fairly distributed. That's not just a quote. That's a headline. That's fuel. And the fact that the Browns haven't responded, haven't clarified, denied, or corrected, only makes it more damning. Now other teams are watching. And you better believe front offices across the league are making calls, just in case Cleveland decides to cut bait. Because Shedur Sanders, even with the rep restrictions, has enough buzz and tape to intrigue coaches with actual vision. The kind of teams that aren't afraid to put a rookie under center if he's earned it. And here's where it gets poetic. The Browns could very well end up handing another franchise the quarterback they've been looking for themselves. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because they were too scared to shake the status quo. It would be so very Cleveland to develop a gem and then panic when it shines. There's still time, technically, time to course correct, time to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, this competition needs to be reopened for real, not just in pressers. On the field, with actual reps, actual opportunity. But that clock is ticking fast. And every day that passes with Shedur buried on the scout team, while others struggle in live drills, makes it harder to justify the status quo. That's the cost of letting politics override performance. And when the fans turn, when the players check out, when the season slips away, not even Joe Flacco's honesty will be enough to clean up the mess. The Browns will have to answer one question, again and again. How did you screw this up? And this time, we were trying to be fair won't cut it. Not when the receipts are out. Not when the tape speaks for itself. Not when your own quarterback went public with the truth. Because now, everyone knows what Shedur Sanders has known for weeks. The fix was in. The reps were rigged. And Cleveland might have just fumbled the best shot they've had in years.